When someone says, I know what I should do or what I need to do, I just can't manage to do it. I know that the feelings are blocking the person's ability to take action. Do you mind if I move your foot, your paw? You can snuggle it up right next to me. You can chill. I love you very much, dog. If you want to lay down, you can. Hi, folks. Thanks for joining me and dog. I wanted to talk to you today about a student who has failed multiple semesters. This student, age 22, has failed 6 semesters consecutively over 3 different schools. This person is clearly smart and capable and really wants to be independent and successful and efficient. They're studying psychology, and I think that eventually they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. But right now, they're having a very, very difficult time, and I'd like to. All right, so be it. I'd like to go into some of the reasons why, and these reasons are also those that have been missed by her support network of providers around her. So in this video, I'm going to discuss some of the reasons why this person feels they are better off procrastinating or not going to class. And I'm also going to break down some of the approaches that are usually taken by standard tutoring and why they don't work. I won't even need to explain to you why they won't work. You'll see for yourself instantly. So this person is 22 years old, very smart, very capable, wants to be independent and successful, studying psychology. And they, I think, have kind of a openness of heart and vulnerability, which is rare. And I think that the combination of the person's intellect and openness are going to make them an extremely effective clinician. Their goal is to work with some of the most challenging populations in psychology or, I tell you this because I want you to understand how open this person is, how vulnerable this person is, and how clinically dedicated this person intends to be. A lot of people enter into programs and they do them, including psychology, pre-medical engineering, because their parents kind of because their parents or their family push them into it, and they have either no intention of being the best provider for their clients or patients that they can be, nor do they feel happy or sometimes even at peace in these programs. This is not the case for this person. This person is doing this voluntarily and is very motivated to do so. Uh, so let's get right into what the student is experiencing. So they have the mental will, the mental desire to make it to class and to do their assignments on time and to ace the tests and all that. But when it comes time to leave the apartment and go to class, or to sit down and start studying for the exam or doing the assignment or whatever, they they experience a feeling of, as they put it, being overwhelmed. We all have felt overwhelmed in our work, in our studies, our family life, etc., um, or in front of a camera. I feel overwhelmed just doing these videos. So most of us can relate to that feeling. But what we may not be conscious of is that the feeling of overwhelm for most of us is a combination of multiple feelings. Overwhelm, and at the center of those, or at the core of those feelings, is fear. There may be a fear of losing one's basic needs, like for example, losing one's income or livelihood, one's home. But for this individual, and for many of us, the fear that they have is the fear of rejection, or the fear of not being loved, of not being good enough, In our first session, I broke out the tool of self-awareness, which is always the first thing that I like to explore with a student, to find out how self-aware they are and also to help them build self-awareness. If you're in a situation where your feelings are so overwhelming that you cannot take the actions that you really desire to take, chances are pretty good that you're not fully aware of everything that you're feeling. Oftentimes, to me at least, overwhelm comes with a sense of confusion. Yeah, I can feel that there's fear in there. Yeah, I can feel there's, what else? Anxiety, maybe some uh, mental franticness as my mind starts to create scenarios that may be a threat to me or may not be a threat to me. But this is what human beings do. This is what the human mind does. It looks for danger. It perceives danger even when there may not be any. And when there is a threat, like the threat of not being loved by the parents or meeting with judgment or disapproval by the parents, in situations like that, the brain fails to recognize the difference between the threat of being rejected by one's family and a car that's about to hit you, or something that may be poisonous or too hot to touch. Fear, I don't want to say that it's all the same to the brain, but without self awareness to filter out those feelings and the sources of those feelings, confusion often reigns. And in a situation like that, where an individual feels afraid, overwhelmed, and confused, home is the safest place to be, right? Quiet is the safest place to be. And maybe some of those dopamine releasing activities that we do are the safest things to do at the time. Eating, sex. A lot of people use food and sex. Sometimes they even use, things like spending or substances in order to calm themselves down, to soothe themselves. There are less destructive ways to self-soothe, but again, self-awareness is always the first step in being able to make that choice. So exploring this person's self-awareness, I found that they had a very high degree of self-awareness. And this is often the case where people know the way that they feel, they know that they're familiar with their thoughts, their inner dialogues, but they can't quite make themselves flip the switch to make the choice that they really want to make in order to be successful or in order to get their systems running or get their goals met. When someone says something like, I know what I should do or what I need to do, I just can't manage to do it, I know that there is a blockage between the thought, the intention, and the feelings that someone is really having. I know that the feelings are blocking the person's ability to take action. This is not as simple as feel the fear and do it anyway, just pull the trigger, just grind. It's definitely not the same. This is I'll say, brain. This is a brain which is incapable of sending the motor signals to get up and move in the presence of fear or overwhelm. A lot of people have this experience, and yes, there are many in our society who will judge us for that and who will exclude us for that. But the healthiest and the most helpful thing is to have those feelings validated and to learn or to be taught self-awareness. So this is where I started, by validating the students' feelings and by exploring their self-awareness. We had a moment where they realized that they have security around them in the form of, for example, a friend or a sibling or a parent who loves them and will be for them and listen to them. However, they were not consciously aware of that secure base. So, seeking to make the most of the resources that they had around them at the time, or that they have around them in place already, my first step was to teach a technique called toggling. This is something that I learned by listening to Josh Corda from Dharma Punks NYC, who I highly recommend as a resource. In what Josh Corda calls toggling, after grounding yourself and calling to mind the feeling or image of a stressful situation, for example, trying to make it to class or do the schoolwork or what have you, one also calls to mind the image of someone or something or some place which is accepting and safe and comforting. So that could be a parent or a loved one, your room, your bedroom, or your home, or it can be a deity or a pet, or it could be an image of yourself. I particularly like the image of myself as a secure base. And then you spend the time in the meditation going back and forth, experience between those two stimuli. I had them spend some time focusing on the schoolwork and the desire to get to school and the anxiety that comes with that, the overwhelm that starts to come with that. Once they were feeling those difficult emotions, I had them switch their concentration to the image of the loved one who brought them comfort and safety. And then once they felt self-regulated or down-regulated enough, I would ask them to switch back to the image which provoked the anxiety and the overwhelm. Now, I want to add that if you're doing this on your own, if it's your first time, or if you've done this less than 3 or 4 times, you may want to engage with the anxiety provoking stimulus or the anxiety provoking image lightly so that you don't get overwhelmed, so that you don't get triggered, so that you don't get too anxious or too fearful, and not be able to calm yourself down, not be able to allow your body to regulate. So being in the session with this person and having ample space and time to work with them in case they got to that point, I felt fine leading them through the process and engaging with the full feeling of being overwhelmed. And they felt fine about that too. They did go to class and do their assignments the week that we had the session. After the session, I didn't bother to ask them what their impression was, if they felt that they were able to accomplish more because of the toggling work, because of the meditation work. But I'm pretty confident that that had something to do with it. Usually, when people have some kind of support and they start to feel more safe in any context, usually they start to become more grounded and therefore more creative and productive. Which brings me to the next topic, which is that oftentimes the goals that we set for ourselves, oftentimes they are really lofty, especially if we feel like we failed and failed and failed and need to bounce back, or if we tend to overcompensate. I'm going to make it to every class the rest of the semester. I'm not going to be late even once, definitely not absent. But people get sick. People get sick, and there's also life to lead, and sometimes those things get in the way. I'm going to get an A or at least a B plus on every paper, every quiz, test, etc. I'm going to finish this semester strong. Yeah, that's a great intention. However, if you have not been keeping up your work in that class, the chances of you getting the highest grade are probably out of the question, depending on how many assignments have gone by. But the point is that in the process of accepting our feelings and allowing ourselves to feel the way that we do and to make the decisions the way that we do, we also benefit from being able to get a B or a C or even a D. I mean, if you think about it, a D may not be the most desirable grade, but it's higher than an F. And this person had 6 semesters worth of Fs. So I would take a D in any class, in any situation, because I think that is an improvement over an F. So, uh, so we established that there is overwhelm and there is panic. I'm sorry, we established that there is overwhelm and that there is real fear. And we also established that within her own heart, her own imagination, there is a sense of security waiting for her that she can tap into anytime she needs it, anytime they need it. Acknowledging those things and bringing one's self-awareness, practicing one's self-awareness Bringing one's self awareness to those feelings is often a new practice for those who I coach who are either school refusers or who have failed chronically in school. So once we established a pretty good self awareness practice, we then moved on to exploring the feelings more deeply. This was the second session. So in the second session, I brought up some issues that I found between this person and their parents through communicating with the parents. In texting with the parents, what I found was that they were not willing to explore the emotional aspects or the spiritual aspects, spiritual being a combination of everything that we are: emotions, thoughts, our physical body, our energy, our memories, all of it together makes up the spirit. The spirit is also our link to the collective. The energy that we put out binds us or links us through the energy that others put out to those around us. I hope I'm being clear about that. It's not easy to define spirit, and my definitions are, I would say, subjective and probably pretty vanilla. Uh, anyway, they work for me and my clients. So in the second session, we began to explore the nature of the overwhelm and the nature of the fear. What kinds of fears, what kinds of overwhelm, what kinds of feelings are below the surface? What's in that whole overwhelming package, if you will?